I love guitar amplifiers. I'm a bit of an amp addict, I think. I love everything about them. I love big amps and I love small amps. But recently I've found myself reaching for a smaller amplifier much more often than I am any of my big amps. Part of it is the convenience factor and being able to play at low volumes here in the bedroom, but also part of it is the versatility. See, I think you can do everything you need to do with a small 5-watt combo amp. And in today's video, I'm gonna show you how. Using this, the new Gibson Falcon 5. This was sent to me by Sweetwater, and I reached out to them to send me this amp because I want to check it out. I'm a big fan of old Gibson amps. I own 2 vintage Skylarks. I've used original GA50s to record on albums, and I'm really happy to see that Gibson has brought back and resurrected their old amplifier designs with some modern touches. I've had my hands on the Falcon 5 and been playing it up here for a few weeks, and I really enjoy it, and we're going to use it in today's video to demonstrate some of the ideas and show you why I think a small amplifier is better in a lot of cases than its bigger counterpart. So if you want more information on the Falcon 5 or any of the other gear that I'm using in today's video, check out the links in the description. Those are affiliate links. So if you use one of those links, I earn a small commission. It doesn't cost you any extra. And it's a great way to support the channel if you like what I'm doing here. Also, be sure to subscribe. Still, according to my analytics, over half of the people, 60+% of the people who watch my channel on a normal basis are not subscribed, and it really helps the channel out when you click that little red button down there. So with all that out of the way, let's get this thing mic'd up and take a listen. Okay, so before we get into this, let me just say that yes, there is absolutely a place for big amps. Obviously, I have found a place for big amps, and there's something special about being on a stage with a big amp behind you moving air. There's really no replacement for that in the right context. But the history of these big 100-watt amps that we all think about when we think of our guitar heroes on stage in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, those amps were designed to be solutions to a problem that those players were having, which was not being able to be heard in a live setting. Guys like Hendrix and Clapton needed bigger amps because they were playing bigger rooms, and small combos were not big enough to get out and be heard in the audience. But the reality is, for most of us guitar players today, is that we don't need 100-watt amps, especially if you're playing and recording at home. Now, the great thing about small amps is when you are recording at home, you can still get a massive sound. Bigger does not always mean better in terms of recording. And in fact, a lot of times the opposite is true, which is why a lot of our favorite records were recorded using small combo amps of the time, whether they be a Silvertone or a Supro or Fender Champ, for example, or even an old Gibson Skylark or Falcon. How do we get a big recorded tone using a small combo amp? Well, the first thing we're gonna talk about is mic placement and mic technique. Okay, so here on the Falcon 5, I've got my 2 favorite microphones for recording guitars, the Shure SM57 and the AEA R92. Now the R92 is a ribbon microphone, which we'll get to in a second, but starting with the Shure, this is arguably the most popular mic for recording electric guitar amps, and there's good reason for it. It can handle incredibly high SPL or volume without breaking up or distorting. It sounds great. It has a nice upper mid-range kick that accentuates distorted guitars really, really well, and they're damn near indestructible and cheap. I have a whole video about the SM57 that you can check out here if you're interested. Now the reality is, even though I have 2 microphones on this cabinet, I can get a huge guitar sound just using the 57 with a few techniques. Mic placement on the speaker being one, and proximity effect being the second. Now, the side-to-side mic placement on the speaker, you might already know, determines the overall brightness or darkness, or the EQ curve of the sound. The closer to the center of the speaker we go, the brighter the sound is going to be. The higher frequencies come from the center of the speaker, the darker frequencies come from the edge of the speaker. So where you place that microphone on the speaker has an effect. proximity effect is something that occurs based off of the mic's proximity to the sound source. Meaning the closer you are to the sound source, the more low end you're going to get. Now this only happens with directional microphones, so cardioid mics or figure 8 microphones. It doesn't happen with omnidirectional microphones. There's very technical reasons why, but what you should know is the closer you put your microphone to the speaker cabinet, the more low end, the more bass response you're going to get. Now this can be a good thing or a bad thing. It depends on what you want to hear in your mix. A lot of times with guitar amps, we're actually cutting low end out of the mix. So putting the mic right up on the grill cloth isn't always the best move. Sometimes you actually want to back it off to sort of preemptively cut some of that low end so you don't have to EQ it out later. But in the case of a small amp, using proximity effect to your advantage can actually be part of what gives the amp a bigger sound. Now, there is one thing that I have a hunch about, and I'm not actually sure. If you know more about this, let me know in the comments down below. But in this case, we're recording a 10-inch speaker instead of your typical 12-inch speaker, which means the diaphragm on this microphone is covering a wider part of the speaker proportionally because it's a smaller speaker. But in my mind, that's part of why small amps and small speakers can have such a big sound. That's just a hunch. Now, another advantage that small amps have over big amps for recording at home is the fact that because they're lower wattage, you can drive the amp to distortion, power tube distortion, actual amp distortion, without the need for an overdrive or boost pedal at a much lower volume. And the amp gets loud. I mean, don't get me wrong, 5 watts will move some air, but it's not so loud that I'm gonna be getting complaints from my neighbors. The other cool thing is the way small low wattage amps like this take things like fuzz. I'm a huge fuzz nerd and I absolutely love it when the fuzz is hitting the front end of the amp so hard that it makes the amp sound like it's gonna explode, like it's gonna collapse in on itself. That's something I find really inspiring to play, and I can get that effect at a more reasonable, manageable volume with something like this than I can with some of my bigger amps. One thing I like about the Falcon 5 is it actually has a low power setting, so I can switch it down to basically 1 watt, and the amp still sounds and responds like it's at full power when it's under a microphone. In the room, it gets quiet enough that you can have a conversation over it while it's absolutely blasting with a fuzz pedal in front of it, but under a microphone, it still sounds pretty big. Another example is with mic choice. Using a smaller, lower wattage combo gives you more options with mic choice. Case in point, one of my favorite mics of all time is the Coles 4038. This is a legendary microphone for not just guitar cabs, but vocals, drum overheads, pianos, room mics. You can use these for everything and they sound great. But these are ribbon microphones and they have an SPL limit. They don't like really high volume or SPL loads, which means they're not good to stick in front of a loud amp that's moving a lot of air. But they can sound incredible in the front of a small 112 combo like this, especially when you back the mic off the cabinet a few feet to decrease the proximity effect. Now, I can't use this mic on my big 100-watt amps downstairs because I'll literally blow the armature, I'll blow the ribbon, but I can use it on this and it sounds amazing. At the end of the day, guitar is an art form, and that means it's subjective. So how you choose to go about creating your guitar sound is totally up to you. There is no right or wrong way to do any of this. But hopefully this video taught you that you don't need a big amp to get a big guitar sound, especially when recording at home. And in many cases, a small amp can do everything a big amp can do, even on stage in a live performance. Now, there is an argument to be made about small amps not being able to fill the space of a stage and get over a loud drummer. Maybe we should try that out. Gibson also has the Falcon 20, so maybe we get the Falcon 20 and shoot it out against the Falcon 5 in the context of a real band at a real venue. Let me know if you want to see that video in the comment section down below. But at the end of the day, small amps are great. Thank you so much to Sweetwater for sponsoring today's video. If you want to check out the Falcon 5 or any of the other gear that I talked about in today's video, check the links in the description. Those are affiliate links, so I appreciate you using those to support the channel. Also, you can check out the free ebook I just published, the Fretboard Fundamentals ebook. That's linked down below as well. And be sure to subscribe while you're down there. My name is Rhett. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.